Right. Welcome back to First Samuel. Glad you're all here. Different location, same Bible. So, same Bible. Same. I'm using. Yeah, bring your own Bible. Right. BYOB. Bring your own Bible. I actually saw this. It was like an elementary school party, and it's like, oh yeah, we're going to the jumpy place over here. It's gonna be pizza, and it said BYOB, and I'm like, how much elementary kids are supposed to bring beer? What the heck is this? You know? But surely they meant Bible, right?
Bring your own bounce house.
Bring your own bounce. Bring your own bouncy. Well, no, I don't know. I couldn't figure out what it was.
You go a lot of different directions with that.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out what it meant. So whatever. So we are in 1 Samuel 26, and remember we talked about Nabal and the dumb guy, the foolish, and he literally turns into stone. He has a heart attack, and then he dies. Yeah. And then David says, "Hey, you're pretty, and you're pretty smart, and you're pretty awesome. Why don't you be my wife?" And there's other chick over here too. Why don't you be my wife too? So that means our first little glimpse into David maybe has a woman problem, right? So we'll go to verse 1 of chapter 26 now, and let's read through this. The Ziphites came to Saul at Gibeah. Remember, Gibeah is up in the middle part of the country, right north of Jerusalem. So north of Jerusalem, 26, saying, "Is David not hiding himself on the hill of Hakilah, which is before Jeshimon?" So the Ziphites, these people were all the way back here. If you remember a couple of chapters ago, they were back here named, and so they said, "Oh yeah, David and his men are over here." And so Saul came, and they was chasing them around and whatever, right? Well, here they are again, and they're saying, "Hey, Saul, David and his men are over here." It's kind of, seriously, you're selling them out, you know? So Saul arose and went down to the wilderness of Ziph, having 3,000 chosen men of Israel with him. Now, this is the first time we see 3,000 chosen men. This is like his special ops team, right? This is his dark operators.
You know, Josephus talks about this in one of his books, the works of Josephus, talks about his home guard. And they were so prestige that they would actually wear gold flakes in their hair.
Oh, wow.
So it would spark. I mean, it would be like a big shindig when they appeared.
When they moved, it was,
Yes.
yeah.
Wow.
That's incredible. Yeah. So verse 3, Saul camped on the hill of Hakilah, which is before Jeshimon, by the road. So they're encamped by the road. Remember, 3,000 men, okay? Not even including all the horses, not all their supplies, their backpacks, their weapons and everything, right? 3,000. And so, we've got, almost 10 or 12 of us in here today. You imagine 30 times that. I mean, you're talking a lot of people. That would fill up, I don't know, what, 10 backyards or something like that. I mean, think about how many people that is. It's a lot. It's so the place where they're camping by the side of the road is not going to be on the side of a hill. So they're on a hill, but it says they're camped next to the road. So this must be an area where it's flattened out, because they just can't. Do you see what I'm saying? They just can't pop up tents on the side of a hill like this.
You know what? See, I found this out where it shows the seasoning that each Roman soldier would carry with them, because when they cooked rabbit or whatever it was, they ate a lot of hair back then. But the number one seasoning that every Roman soldier would carry is cumin.
Nice. I would not have guessed that either. So we've got 3,000 of them. They're camped out there.
What verse are we in?
Verse 3. Saul camped on the hill of Hakilah, which is before Jeshimon, by the road. And that's my point, is like we're pointing out, it's by the road because it's a flat area. That's where you can put 3,000 people camping. Either, I don't know if they've got tents or if they're just doing cowboy camping, just under the stars in their little bedroll or whatever. All right. But David stayed in the wilderness. So David and his men are up on the ridges of the hill. They're up in the wilderness. And they didn't just go into the nice, easy, flat area. Now, how many men does David have?
300.
Nope.
3,000.
No. David.
Oh, my bad.
Saul has 3,000. How many does David have?
200.
Nope.
Does it say in the scripture?
It does say, We saw it previous chapter, 600.
Okay. So
600.
1/4.
So 1/5.
How many Bible stories?
1/5. Okay. So we've got 600 in choice defensive locations and 3,000 in kind of a exposed location. You see it now? Picking it up? Okay. So verse 4. Oh, I'm sorry. And when he saw that Saul came after him into the wilderness, and David sent out spies and knew that Saul had certainly come. So he said, hey, you go down there. See, make sure who's here. I think it's Saul chasing me, but you go down there. So this, the spies coming down. Now, if you're going down, if you've ever seen pictures of the wilderness in Israel, it's very rocky, not a lot of trees and vegetation. So you can imagine trying to go down the hill, any little rock, and then. So trying to sneak in is actually a huge feat, given the terrain that they're in. Given the terrain they're in.
They probably know parkour. They can probably hop around the rock.
What's the Israeli martial arts that they have?
Krav Maga.
Krav Maga. Krav Maga. Those Krav Maga. They're like, yeah, but it's Israeli. It's basically it's like karate, but you're like Jehovah. I don't know.
It's a lot of different submissions, and it's good. It's good stuff.
It's basically it's
I've seen those weapons around.
it's kick your butt is what it is. So
They would do the night before, though, like Alexander's Great. We taught this, or they might have been doing this too. The night before a battle or a skirmish, or they thought there would be, the whole night before there would be a team that would level off the place. They would remove big rocks where chariots could run smooth.
Be dudes like
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, I'd be at work.
Yeah.
You'd be moving rocks.
they'd be like, oh look, they brought a cave troll, like.
They brought the giant. Move that rock, giant.
Yeah. All right, so David sent spies down there, and that's not a small feat, right? Given the terrain, that's not a small task. So David arose and came to the place where Saul had camped. So David himself then, ninja, Krav Maga, like parkour, going down. Now this is the interesting. I really like this next section here because this is David. Remember, Saul killed his thousands. David killed his 10,000s, right?
The song.
Yeah, the song. And so we know that David is not like some wishy-washy dude. He slung the stone, knocked Goliath out, and then took Goliath's giant sword and locked his head off, right? I mean, David he's a savage. He's a fighter. Yeah.
Previous chapter, right?
Oh, no, it's a few chapters back. Yeah, you have to catch up.
He probably has to be, because he's a skinny dude, and if
Well,
they
look
really
how-
get a hold of him,
But look at his upbringing, what he did.
yeah,
He was a shepherd. He had to defend the flock against the
fighting wolves and stuff.
wolves and the lions and all the other things, right? So, when you think about that, David arose and came to the place where Saul camped. David had to also be stealthy. It wouldn't be like, hey, I sent spies down. Yeah, it's definitely Saul. Okay, going down there too. That doesn't make sense. So David himself had to actually have the stealthiness to get down there. And David saw the place where Saul was lying down. And Abner, if you remember, who's Abner? Remember at Nob, David was getting the bread, the showbread from the temple worship, and he and his men were eating the bread. And the priest was like, okay, I can't give you the new bread, but I'll give you the bread they're pulling off of the table of showbread there. I'll give it to you and your men. And so they ate that. And when Saul found out that he had helped David and his men, he sent Abner, basically his general, in there, and Abner killed every single priest except for one who escaped.
Oh, wow.
So we have Saul laying there, and who's laying right next to him? Abner, son of Ner, the commander of his army. So they're laying right next to each other. So you've got the president and the joint chiefs of staff, right? And they're laying down, and Saul was lying down. Get my page bar out of here. Saul was laying down on the encampment while the people encamped around him. So Saul's in the middle. So if you imagine, like, all of us are around the middle, and then we had Saul laying in the middle of the room here. So that means not only do I have to stealthily go down the side of the cliff to come out of my hiding spot and get to the place where everybody's at in this flatter area, I've got to maneuver through 3,000 people laying down. That's not a small feat. 3,000 people, I've got to go around them without crunching. I've got to get all the way to the middle to where Saul is. Okay? So this is where I'm like, dang, David's an operator.
Yeah.
This dude is straight up.
Like special officer.
Yeah.
Sure.
So verse 6, then David answered and said to Ahimelech, Ahimelech is the priest who escaped, right? He's the one priest who escaped from the massacre. And to Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, the brother of Joab, saying, who will go down with me to Saul, to the camp? Who's going to go down there? And let's go see if we can find Saul in the middle of these 3,000 people. And Abishai said, I will go down with you. Ahimelech is a priest, remember? And we talked about the physical nature of like having to cut the animals and all that. So the priests have some, I mean, they're not like that over there. They're probably more like, somebody who's a little thinner. They didn't have as many calories as you've had to get bigger. No, thinner with muscles.
Yeah, those aren't there.
And so these guys are.
You got this about the food.
Who's here?
Oh,
Hey, man, dude, you should have just
what's up, boss?
spent money for.
Hey, what's up,
In
man?
the beginning.
Come on in.
Bible study still.
It's all right. Here, I'll get you a seat. Hold on. It's all right. Here, just go back there with Mr. Mike.
No, because he Ubered here, and I was like, dude, you don't want to spend the money to
No,
Uber.
he's okay. He's here. He's fine.
Why didn't you just come with me earlier?
Well, now he knows. Maybe he finished his paper. Maybe he finished his paper now. He's good. Now he's smarter than you.
Yeah, he's been smarter than me. He's just smarter. He's been smarter than me.
I'm proud of you, Bradford. I see your post. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You're doing great, man. I don't always comment, but I do see it.
He's too busy being a movie star, so.
I'll have my agent comment.
I'll let my people.
My PR rep. My PR rep.
That is hilarious.
PR rep. All right, so we're in chapter 26, 1 Samuel 26. And if you remember in verse 6, Ahimelech is the priest who escaped Abner. And so he saw the massacre. And so you can now see, he's like, Ahimelech, Abiyashi, or however you pronounce that name. Either one of you guys want to go with me and go down and find Saul? I can see David like with fire in his eyes, like, yeah, let's do this. Ahimelech's not a warrior, right? And he saw the massacre, and he's like, I see that dude laying next to Saul. Not interested.
Right.
Pass.
So the guy laying next to Saul did the massacre.
Yes.
Okay.
Abner.
Yeah, that's what.
And so we see, 1 Samuel 26. And so we see the other guy, Abishai. I keep wanting to say Abiyashi, but that's not right. Abishai says, I'll go down with you. I'm game. It's almost like, hey, I dare you to go over there and ring the doorbell and run away with me. And, and so the guy's like, I'll go. Why not? Let's go. Let's do it. So verse 7, so David and Abishai came to the people by night while Saul lay sleeping within the circle. There's 3,000 people, Saul laying in the middle. And David and his friend Abishai are sneaking down the side of the mountain and amongst the 3,000 people to get to the very middle of the circle to get to where Saul's laying. And his spear was stuck in the ground at the head of where he was laying. So it was like, all right, I'm going to bed, guys. And he lay down, right? So the spear's in the ground right there. So Abishai, and this is where I'm not sure, are they using like special ops, it's like, like signals, like hand signals? Because it says, then Abishai said to David, it's like, we snuck in there. Hey, David, what do you think we should do? Like, how were they talking and communicating, right? It says, then Abishai said to David, God has today delivered your enemy into your hand. Now, please let me strike him with the spear through him to the ground with one stroke, and I will not strike him a second time. So he's like, look, one shot, one kill. I could take this spear, bam, we could be done with this thing.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how he said that without waking up all the people. And that's why I'm like, he's like,
Yeah, he could have used hands.
I don't know what he was doing. All right.
Or maybe Saul was super drunk.
Could have been.
I would assume they were.
They could have been drunk.
They probably watched him get wasted and then pass out and then snuck in there.
There's another answer. We're going to look at it in just a second. There's another possibility. We're going to keep reading. We may find out something. Quit jumping ahead. So we go to verse 9. David says to Abishai, do not destroy him. Do not kill him. For who can stretch out his hand against the Lord's anointed and remain unpunished? So David, remember, he's been anointed. We know he's going to be king. But David is saying, God anointed Saul to be the king. And he is A, still the king, and he is B, still alive. So that means I can't be king. And I'm not going to be the one. I didn't ask to be anointed.
Right, that's true.
Right? I was anointed, but I didn't ask for that. So it's not my role to go in here and say, you know what? There's Saul. Let's just get this thing over with. Now I'm the king. Everyone worship at my feet now. So he's really trying just to say, my time's coming. I don't know when it is. That's for God to decide that time, not for me. Right? So when we go here to verse 10, David said, as the Lord lives, the Lord will strike him, or his day will come to die. So either God's going to take him out early, or he'll just live to an old age in his time.
Saul just tell him, I'm not going to do anything. Don't kill my people. I won't kill your people.
He did. He had what we would call a come to Jesus. Where he said, David, you're definitely the better man. I know that I'm going to die. You're going to be king. Just don't cut off my descendants.
Yeah.
Right? Remember we had that conversation. But again, Saul wakes up the next morning. He's like, dang it, I let David go. I need to chase him again. It's like, it's kind of like the Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner, right? He just can't help himself.
Yeah.
Can't help himself.
Wow.
So, or his day will come to die, or he will go down into battle and perish. The Lord forbid that I should stretch out my hand against the Lord's anointed, but now please take the spear that is at his head and the jug of water laying next to him, and let's go. So, what happens when you wake up in the morning and you're sleeping in the desert? Well, drink of water, right? All right, it's time to wake up for battle. Where's my spear, man? I don't have water. I got my spear. I'm not ready, right? I'm exposed. I'm mentally now not prepared for what's happening. Something's got me, right? So David took the spear and the jug of water from Saul's head, and they went away. Now again, they had to sneak back out through the 3,000 guys with a spear and a jug of water sloshing around. This is not a small task. I can't literally get my children to take a bowl of cereal from in there to in here to watch a cartoon without spilling the milk on the floor. Wow. And this guy's is going to carry a jug of water through 3,000 people over rocky terrain without disturbing or waking up any of them. Huge task, right?
I wonder real quick, do you think they would have blended in with him?
Well, they would have had to.
Yeah, I would think so.
I mean, unless you got the hand of God on you.
They're all asleep.
Yeah, but if somebody woke up, you don't want to stick out like a sore thumb. Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's keep reading.
Then if they wake up and see the spear.
Let's keep reading. You guys are jumping ahead.
What did I say? We're about to find out.
David took the spear and the jug of water from Saul's head, and they went away. No one saw, no one knew. And no one awoke, for they were all asleep because a deep sleep from the Lord had fallen upon them. There's your answer, right? The Lord put them to deep sleep.
Like the animals on the ark.
Like the animals on the ark, probably. And like Adam getting surgery on his ribs, right?
Yeah.
So this is not about David and his stealthy skill then, is it?
No.
It's God.
We were looking for a humanistic.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're looking for how, man, this guy's amazing. He's fantastic. It's wonderful. Look at all these things. And then really, they probably were like, clomp, clomp, hey, ha. And that's why they were able to talk to each other and everything else, because God has already knocked these people out.
Don't worry about it. The Lord put them to sleep. Let's just keep going.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank God we're so quiet.
Good thing we're so stealthy, huh?
They're like stepping on the guy. They're like.
Yeah, girl. Put them out.
So it changes our entire perspective when we hear that, doesn't it? It completely changes the way we now think about the situation. We were thinking, like you said, how are they doing this within the power of themselves? How are they making this happen? The stealthiness, 3,000 people, you're not going to wake anybody up going through the middle of their camp. I mean, how is this happening? And then we find out God's already done it. God's already taken care of it. How many times in our lives do we step in and say, well, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. If I don't move this thing right here, just so, nothing's going to happen that's supposed to happen. And God's like, you're worried about moving this? I'm going to be changing this whole thing. Right? He sees the bigger picture. Our power is weak. We're thinking, how can I sneak past all those people? And God's like, I'm just going to put them all to sleep.
Let's make this easy.
Let's make this real easy.
Why are you beating around the bush?
Right? All right, let's continue. So 1 Samuel 26, verse 13. Then David went over to the other side. So remember, there's like a hill, and it's kind of a flat area. David went down the valley and up to the other side on the other hill. So he's, a little bit of a distance away from them. Probably in the order of about a quarter of a mile. And stood over on the other side, and stood on the top of the hill at a distance. A great space was between them. And David called to the people and to Abner, the son of Ner, saying, will you not answer, Abner? So he's like, everybody wake up. Abner, are you up? What's up, buddy? And you can see people starting to stir and wake up, and see they're rubbing their eyes, and they're, what am I hearing? Am I hearing someone yelling? What's going on? Then Abner answered and said, who are you that calls to the king? Because he's right next to the king, right? So he's basically saying, I'm not the king, and you asked for Abner, but I'm putting myself with the king. I mean, who dare you call to the king, right? So he says he's thinking that he's aligned with the power. And David, in verse 15, and David said to Abner, are you not a man? And who is like to you in Israel? Why then have you not guarded your lord the king? So Abner, remember, he did that massacre in Nob. And Ahimelech, the priest who survived, was like, I'm not going in there. And Abner is now saying, well, who are you? Like, I'm with the king. Who are you? And he's like, yeah, you're just a man. Because you didn't guard your king. You're just a man. You didn't guard your king. Why then have you not guarded your lord the king? For one of the people came in to destroy the king, your lord. This thing is not good what you've done. He's like, you totally messed it up, man. You messed up, Aaron, right? As the Lord lives, you are worthy of death because you have not guarded your master, the Lord's anointed. I like how David throws that in. That's like a little jab. It's like, not just the king, he's right here, but like, that's the Lord's anointed. You don't care about what God cares about? I think he's really pouring it on, right? And he says, as the Lord, this thing is not good what you have done. As the Lord lives, you are worthy of death because you have not guarded your master, the Lord's anointed. And now, see, where is the king's spear and the jug of water that was at his head? You can see him going, hey, what did you do with that thing? I didn't do it. I'm sleeping, man. So then they start ensuing. Okay, how would we react if I put something there and I wake up and it's not there?
Blaming everybody.
Yeah, start blaming everybody. Start thinking like, well, wait a minute. Are they conspiring against me? It causes one of the, like, I love all of y'all and I trust all of y'all and y'all are my family and I love you. But when we're looking for the remote control, I don't trust a single one of you. Are you sitting on the remote control?
How can you know? You
get up.
Never sat on a control.
Get up.
Yeah. Get up. I don't trust you.
Get up. I want to test and see.
Sometimes you're sitting on it and you don't know it.
So, so you get my point, right? So then it becomes this. Well, wait a minute. Did you take the jug? Did you take the spear? So we got this situation happening. So Saul knew David's voice. They had just had a conversation not that long ago, if you'll remember, where he said, hey, you're the better man, you're going to be the king, right? They just had this conversation. Saul knew David's voice and said, is this your voice, my son David?
Like, really? He knows he got God again.
Oh, yeah. He's like, I can almost see him doing it like this. I can see him like he's waking up, and I can say, David, is that you again?
Because he did it before.
He did it
While
before.
he was peeing.
I don't think he was peeing, but yeah. I think he was dropping the kids off in the cave. And David said, it is my voice, my Lord King, he said. Why is my Lord pursuing after his servant?
Again.
We just had a conversation. Why are we doing this again? For what have I done, or what evil is in my hand? Now please let my Lord King hear the words of his servant. If the Lord has stirred you up against me, let him accept an offering. But if it was the sons of men, cursed are they before the Lord. For they have driven me today from having a share in the inheritance of the Lord, saying, go serve other gods. So he's saying here, he's like, listen, if God stirred it within you, then that's between me and him. So I must have sinned in some way. So let me go do a sacrifice, and I'll get right with God. I'm willing to admit if I made it, just let me know what I sinned. I'm willing to deal with that, if that's why you're chasing me. But if it's because other people are whispering in your ear, and they're also telling you, oh yeah, go worship other gods, you're listening to the wrong crowd, buddy. You're in the wrong group. Your friends are not really your friends. They're here because of your power and your money. So he says, now do not let my blood fall to the ground away from the presence of the Lord. So he's saying, we're out here in the middle of the wilderness. If you're going to kill me, I'll go to the temple. You can just sacrifice me right there. Don't let me fall. I want to serve God. I want to love God. Truly, the king of Israel has come out to seek a single flea. What is that called?
What did you say?
He said, surely the king has come out to kill a single flea. Yeah, it's like a metaphor. He's trying to downplay his role in this whole situation. Like, I'm just leave me alone and go about your business, man. Right?
Like basically telling him, I can't harm you. There's nothing I'm going to do to you.
Right. Yeah, I'm nothing. I may be an annoyance to you, but I'm not harming you, right? As when one pursues a partridge in the mountains, right? So as he says, hey, I'm out in the mountains, I'm chasing after those birds, and you got a little flea. Like, I'm not worried about the flea. I'm going to go after the actual goal here. So we're in verse 21. Then said Saul, I have sinned. Wow, confession. Saul says, I have sinned. Return, my son David, for I will not harm you again, because my soul was precious in your eyes this day. I have acted foolishly and have seriously gone astray. Wow. Last time he said, you're a better man than me. Right? But this time he's actually full on confessing that I'm in the wrong. You're right, I'm wrong. You're ugly, I'm not unattractive. That whole thing. So, just kidding. That was a Happy Gilmore quote.
I was about to say that's from Henry Chubb's Peter.
Yes. David answered and said, see the king's spear? He's holding it up. Let one of the young men come over and get it. So he said, come over here and get it. I'll give it back to you.
Were his dudes behind him at this point, or is it just him and Homeboy still?
It's just him and Homeboy still.
Wow.
The 600 guys are hiding.
That's like, you got to have some real cojones to do that. Because, if Saul were, all he would have had to do was come out and be like, okay, kill him. He's right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
David knew
he was protected. Yeah. And remember, Saul's got some egg on his face, and Abner's got some egg on their face, because here these two, little fleas just went in through 3,000 people, grabbed a jug of water, and then hiked out of there. So there's also this, like, the kid got me again. Yeah, like Dennis the Menace. I like that. Yeah. He's like,
and Saul's my Mr. Wilson.
Yes, yeah. Saul's Mr. Wilson. That's right. I saw Dennis the Menace.
Younger guys don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't.
They made a remake of it. They made movies about it.
Yeah. Movies from the 90s. Yeah.
It's still the 90s. He wasn't even born yet.
Wow.
Crazy.
I feel so old.
What year were you born?
84.
Yeah, he's way younger than that. Which,
we
but,
make it hilarious. You should watch.
I have a daughter almost his age.
Wow.
yeah,
Thinking about that.
yeah, but you're old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's only for Bradford, okay? We only talk about Bradford now.
So let's finish up chapter 26, and we'll go through 27 is real short. We'll go through that one. So verse 22, and David answered, "See the king's spear. Let one of the young men come over and get it. The Lord requites to every man his right conduct and loyalty. The Lord returns to, or repays to each man his right conduct and loyalty. So the Lord gave you into my hand today, but I'm not willing to stretch my hand against the Lord's anointed. And as your life was highly valued in my eyes this day, so may my life be highly valued in the eyes of the Lord, and may he rescue me out of all distress." Now, this right here, when he says rescue me out of all distress, remember, David's journaling. He's journaling this, and we actually have a copy of it. It's called Psalms. It's the book of Psalms, where David's like, "Oh, my heart is weary over this, blah, 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 blah." He's actually journaling about being chased by Saul.
Do we know which exact moment?
There's actually, I don't have it outlined, but yeah, you can look it up. You can look up 1 Samuel and Saul and Psalms, and you can see where they're connected. Yeah.
Because you can literally, like what you're talking about right now, go to Psalm, find where he's
Correct. That's right.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's cool.
Yeah. So this also proves the Bible is not purely just linear, right?
Yeah.
The Bible is connected.
It would be impossible if it wasn't divine.
Yeah.
It would be impossible.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
The more you study this, you just say, a man couldn't figure this out on his own.
No.
There's no way, man.
That's right.
When you read the Quran, because I study archaeology and anthropology and other religions, but if you read the Quran, which was written 500 years after this, right, you can tell Muhammad took some of these, the way it's written, it parallels
Yes.
the way it's written. He got this from reading all the scrolls, the Old Testament scrolls. It reads too much alike for it not to be a coincidence.
Yep.
So he got his knowledge from this.
Copying is the best form of flattery, right?
Yeah. Good point. Well, what is it? Plagiarism when you copy a
Plagiarism.
Yeah, I was watching a thing on that the other day, and it was saying that Muhammad was saying that Jesus is the Word of God, and he's like, he took that straight from John.
Dude, there's a lot of verses.
He took it straight from John. So what do you think Muhammad's saying? Muhammad is saying right here, Jesus is God.
There's a lot of passages in the Quran that came from the Bible.
Yeah, but we're not going to read that passage.
Yeah.
It may be in there, but we're not going to read that.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the Jews. They have Isaiah 52 and 53. They won't read that.
Yeah, don't get them on that.
They won't read that.
Are you saying like it's not in their
They won't recognize it.
It's in there. They go
It's like
they go
the
51,
Mormons with Galatians.
54. Like they literally they'll skip it.
It's like certain things they don't want.
Well, the Jehovah's Witnesses, they can't explain. I had a
Because
boss.
they don't want to believe that Jesus is the Messiah.
When it's clearly him
Yeah.
in Isaiah 52 and 53.
Anyone can clearly see it.
Yeah.
Because they talk about his stripes.
Right.
He was bruised for our iniquities, and his legs will not be broken, or a bone will not be broken.
A bone won't be broken.
He's talking about Jesus.
Yeah.
The Jews don't want to. They don't want to.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, let's finish up 26, and then we'll jump into 27 here. He says, Saul said to David, "Blessed are you, my son David. You will do great things and will surely prevail." So David went on his way, and Saul returned to his place. Ta-da! Like,
So they're good.
yeah. So okay. Well, I guess we're.
But this happened last chapter. So I'm weird.
I know.
This happened
Yeah.
last chapter
This
and a chapter.
Yeah. It's like okay. So we're good.
Third
We're
time?
we're good. We're good, right? Right? Yeah.
I would assume.
All right, so let's go to chapter 27. Now this is where it starts getting interesting, because I think we're beginning to see the complex nature of David and understand his sin proclivities. You know what the word proclivities are? That means the things that he is just kind of naturally inclined to want to do. Like some people have an inclination or proclivity towards drinking too much, or towards having sexual sins, or they're just habitual liars, or whatever, right? So, proclivity. Proclivity.
Started it and I jumped off on it.
Oh man, Harvey, look what you've done.
He's like, you don't know me well enough to do. Hey, you don't know me.
He's like, you've corrupted the younger generation.
Yeah, it's all good stuff. Y'all just quit bragging.
Bradford's awesome.
He's my cousin. I can do it.
He just wrote an essay about theology that just. He's probably needs to be up here teaching this thing. So.
He will. It's only 1,200 words. He will be soon. He will be soon.
You're doing a lot of courses.
It's Liberty University.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's not for that. Yeah, nice.
All right, so let's go into chapter 27 here. I think we just see David kind of going like, all right, we're good. All right. Hey guys, look what we did this thing. Yeah. God, thank you for putting everybody to sleep, right? And I snuck in there. That wasn't that so cool, man. Ahimelech, why didn't you come with us, man? Like, right? So then we see in chapter 27. Then, so when you see a then like that, the first word's a then, we know that there's a turning in the narrative, or a but, or a therefore. There's a therefore. What's the therefore there for? Okay, so it says then, so we're turning a page here, we're turning a chapter. Then David said in his heart, what do we say in our hearts sometimes?
Don't feel right.
Either this doesn't feel right, or this feels good, I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Our hearts can be dark places, right? Okay.
That's why it says trust not on your own, lean not on your own understanding.
Proverbs
and
3.
It also says,
yes.
Don't trust in your heart, right?
Yeah. My heart is wicked and evil. Why would I trust in that? I'm going to trust in God. So then David said in his heart, now I will perish one day by the hand of Saul. We just had this conversation. We're good. All right. You go your way. I'll go my way. Cool. Then David says in his heart, but Saul's going to kill me.
Because the last couple times, I guess. He knows it's going to happen again.
What? When he walked into, remember we thought, he's got to be stealthy, he's got to be a ninja, Krav Maga, whatever. But how did he get to the middle to get to the? It was God, because God put him to sleep, right? So now God has protected him at least 2 times, and we see David then in his heart, he's saying, Saul's going to kill me. What do we see? A change in David's heart here. Fear, and where's God? Where's God? David's saying, this is now on me. He hasn't said that before. He's saying it's on me. Now I will perish one day by the hand of Saul. There is nothing better for me than that I should escape to the land of the Philistines. David is in the line and tribe of Judah coming out of Bethlehem. Bethlehem makes the temple bread, right? And we see that he is basically saying, it's better for me to go live with these wretched, non-Jewish people, these dirty Gentiles, the Philistines, than it is for me to remain in the land where I have been anointed the next king. Does he sound like he's living in the power of the Lord? Is he thinking God's got this? What's he saying?
That's because he worked for God all the way through.
Until right now. Doesn't sound like he's working with God now. Sounds like he's saying, I've got to do this all on my own. How do we go from a spiritual high? Man, he put all them people to sleep and I went in there and got the Spirit. It was so cool. Thanks, man. That was awesome. To, I'm pretty much going to die, so I'm just going to run away. I'm going to run away to a different land, to the people that actually hate me, and I shouldn't be with them because God called us to actually rid them out of the land. But instead of killing them, I'm actually just going to go down there and be a part of them because I'm fearful for my own life. Even though God has saved me multiple times now, I'm going to go run away. This doesn't sound like the David that we've heard. This would be what I would call the dark time in David's life. So then David's heart. So I want you to see that. That's a turning in David, right? Everyone seeing that? The turning. There's nothing better for me than to than that I should escape to the land of the Philistines. Then Saul will despair of continually seeking me within all the territory of Israel. So will I escape out of his hand. So he's basically saying, as long as I'm within the land of where he's the king, he's going to keep chasing me. So I'm just going to go down there. I'm going to go across the border. Remember the old Taco Bell slogan?
Yeah.
Make a run for the border, right? Make a run for the border. The run for the border came out before Yo Quiero Taco Bell.
Yeah, a lot of people are taking that advice too.
All right, so David arose and passed over with 600 men, so he still got his army with him, 600 men that were with him, to Achish, the son of Maoch, king of Gath. Now, where's Gath? Remember Gath again?
Right there by Jerusalem.
So if this is Jerusalem, Bethlehem's here, Gath is right over here. So southwest of Bethlehem.
But that's among the Philistines.
But it's among the Philistines. Where else have you heard the word Gath before?
Goliath?
That's what I'm thinking.
Goliath's hometown.
Yeah. Oh, really? They found the gate
They did.
recently.
In the last 3 years.
He's confident, and he knows that these people fear him, and that he can go there and be safe.
Yep. And remember when he left the temple, Ahimelech gave him something when he left the temple. Do you remember what it was? Goliath's sword.
So has he had it on his whole time?
So he's had it on him.
Well, that's probably humongous.
It's huge. I mean,
He's carrying that around. And
it's a trophy, okay?
Okay.
It's like one of those softball trophies. It's like 6 feet tall. Yeah.
He
It's not really
has
something-
like a wagon that carries it.
Yeah. But he's going to go to the hometown. So that's a real risk. Because they could be like, oh, it's David, he's fearful. Or, that's the dude that killed our giant.
Right. Oh, that's true. That's true.
So David, in his mind, the best place for me to go to run away, even though I have all the country of Israel that I could run away from Saul, and we just kind of ended on good terms, the best idea for me is to go to a place where I have a 50-50 chance of getting killed. Does Saul sound like he's thinking properly here?
You mean David?
I mean, David's thinking properly here? No, he's not. He's definitely not. And David lived with Achish at Gath, he and his men, each man with his household. So it's not just the 600 men now. They've moved their families there.
Yeah, but he's living with a king, so he knows he's good, right?
Maybe. Let's see what the story holds out here. So each man with his family, his household. So he's got wives and children and servants and whatever. So we're probably looking at 2,000 people now moved into this land in Gath. About 2,000 people or so, when you include the wives and the children and everything. That's, again, you get 2,000 people. This is not like a small group. This is a pretty big organization now. And if you have a small village that had maybe 500 to 2,000 people in it to begin with, and you move 2,000 people in there, you basically doubled the size of the thing, or more. So let's see what happens. Each man with his household, even David with his 2 wives, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail the Carmelitess, Nabal's widow. And we talked about that. He married those 2 women on the way down. Now, if you'll remember, he had a 3rd wife, which was his first wife, Michal, Saul's daughter. No, in the last chapter, we see that Saul actually removes her from David and gives her to another man. So I don't know if, yeah.
So David gets to shop around. It's okay.
Well, I mean, was that in like
David respected him enough to give her up.
was that an official divorce? Was that an annulment? Like, I don't know how that.
It's a divorce.
He makes the wall.
Just do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
What's up?
Here, quick question.
Yep.
Last chapter,
Yep.
verse 21. Then Saul said, I have sinned. Return my son David. Why does he call him my son?
Because it's a term of endearment. Remember, David played the harp for him in the throne room when he was having headaches and stuff, and it soothed Saul and
remember his son Jonathan.
and his son Jonathan were like really best friends.
David, right?
So he's like, hey, it would be like,
It would be
you
like
know,
you and Bradford.
No, I get it.
yeah.
Yeah, that's funny.
It's not like you and Bradford though. It's more like you. I mean, Bradford's here, but it's more like you.
That's a good one.
Bradford, we're just picking on you, man.
We need to tell him our bad.
He got me off track with Bradford. With the Bradford, he got me sidetracked with Bradford. I'm like, oh, Bradford. We need to get everybody needs to get Bradford a hug when we get ready to go.
He's like, I'm good. Yeah, I'm good.
So we definitely have to now.
I'll make it.
It was reported to Saul that David had fled to Gath, so he no longer sought him. So apparently David's plan worked, but I'm not sure how much Saul was really like chasing him anyway at that point.
But weren't they just cool in the last chapter?
They were just cool.
I wouldn't trust Saul with his history.
But I wouldn't trust him either. So I get David's, like, if I'm working out of my own,
He had some issues.
if I'm working out of my own consciousness, I'm thinking, I can't trust the dude. I'm just going to go to the other country.
You know there's a spirit of competition. Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, God continues to save me over and over and over and over and over. So am I putting my trust in myself or in him? So that's the conflict that I would have inside of me. So verse 5, David said to Achish, who's the king over that little land of Gath, if I have found favor in your eyes, let them give me a place in one of the cities in the countryside, that I may dwell there. For why should your servant dwell in the royal city with you? So David does the humble brag and says, hey, you're the king. You're amazing. Why can't you get me to send me out into the suburbs? I don't need to be in the town with you. I mean, you're the king and I'm just the servant. And in the back of his mind, also, Saul's killed his thousands, David's killed his 10,000. It's probably good for you that I'm not in town anyway.
The humble brag. The humble brag.
The humble brag. Like you want to move me to the suburbs, don't you? You want to have me removed a little bit away from you, don't you? Yes, I see you do. You know, like I could see him doing that. So Achish gave him the little village of Ziklag that day. And therefore Ziklag has belonged to the kings of Judah to this day. And Ziklag is basically, if Israel has the Mediterranean here on the coast, and then it has along the Egyptian border here, Ziklag is basically right at the middle point along that line. And it's been a part of the Israeli land since that time. There's nothing there. I mean, it's just Ziklag is a couple of rocks now. I mean, there's nothing. You know, it's not like you're going to go there. It's not like a tourist destination. But
you should have brought your dry erase board and your marker.
I know. I thought about that. I could just draw mustaches on them with dry erase boards. The number. So this is interesting. Verse 7. The number of days that David lived in the country of the Philistines was 1 year and 4 months. So when we think about, you know, how long did he moved his family down there and they set up home, they set up camp and whatever. Well, they were there for 16 months. Which is actually, that's like a pretty short-term lease in an apartment.
Yeah,
That's not very much. 16 months, I mean, that's a pretty quick turnaround to move your family down there, get set up, and then go wherever you're going to go. Within the 16-month window, let's see what was happening. Okay, let's go to verse 8. David and his men went up and invaded the Geshurites, the Girzites, and the Amalekites, for they were inhabitants of the land from of old, as you come to Shur, even to the land of Egypt. So remember I said on that line here, the wilderness of Shur is basically this land. So the lines right here, the wilderness of Shur is up against the Egyptian wilderness. There's a place called the wilderness of Shur. And so apparently there's the old people who lived there, the Geshurites, the Girzites, and the Amalekites. And so David and his men went and invaded them. They're looking for resources, food, money. I don't know what they're doing. Just says they invaded them. The Girzites and the Amalekites, for they were inhabitants of the land from of old, as you come to Shur, even to the land of Egypt. So David would strike the land and would not leave either man or woman alive. So when he went to the tiny little outpost villages, maybe a couple of dozen, maybe 100, 200, small places, he would go out there into those little encampments and he would kill everybody. Nobody left.
Kids too?
Kids too.
Well, Saul didn't do that, did he?
Saul didn't do that.
He didn't obey.
David did this. David is doing
No,
this.
but didn't Saul, I don't know what he did. was supposed to do that, but he didn't do it. He left some of them alive.
Yeah, in the very beginning, he left the king alive. Yeah, this is a different group. So he would not leave either man or woman alive, and he would take the sheep, the cattle, the donkeys, and the camels, and the garments, and then he came back to Achish, the king at Gath. Achish would say, "Hey, where have you raided today? Where did you go plundering, dear David?" Look what David says. And David would say, "Oh, against the Negev of Judah, or against the Negev of the Jerahmeelites, or against the Negev of the Kenites." So the Negev desert, if this is the point that's the bottom of Israel here, the Negev desert is up here, basically just south of Bethlehem. That's the Negev desert, just at the southwest corner of the Dead Sea. And so David is saying he's not going to the land of Shur, which is the Philistines, and the Moabites, and the Esauites, and the other ones. David's telling Achish that he's attacking these lands up here, which belong to Israel. Why would he say that he's attacking Israelites?
Yeah, good question.
Let's go on to verse 11. Now David would leave neither man nor woman alive to bring tidings to Gath, saying, lest they should tell on us, saying, thus David has done. So what it's saying is, he was going to neighboring tribes of Achish, neighboring tribes of Gath, and he was obliterating them and plundering all their stuff. And then he was telling Achish, oh no, yeah, it's just some Israelites, some people from Judah and far south Judah. I went ahead and took some of them out. So he's telling Achish that he's taking out Israelites, but he's actually taking out kin or relatives of Achish, and he's decimating them. He's not leaving any alive, so they can't go tattletale on him. And he's decimating these little villages. David is doing two things at once. He's making Achish think, oh man, David's attacking his own people. Wow, this guy must have really, he's really fallen. How far the mighty have fallen, right? And David's also getting rid of the enemies of Israel. He's decimating them. Let's keep going. Let's see what happens. This was his practice all the days which he lived in the country of the Philistines for 16 months. And the Achish believed David, saying, he surely has become a stench to the people of Israel. Therefore, he will be my servant forever. Achish is saying, wow, man, those Israelites must really hate David now. There's no way he's going to be able to go back home. He keeps going and raiding all their, man, they're not going to let him go back home.
So Achish, so I got it right, Achish was the leader of
Gath. Yeah, the Philistines. Yeah.
So he also ran all the Philistines.
They ran what's called city-states. And so it'd be like, I'm the king of this house, that person's king of that house, that person's king of that house. So David was in the suburbs, he would be in the backyard of this house of Achish. And he was going and killing and decimating everybody in that house.
Right,
but he was coming back and saying, and Achish was like, hey, where'd you go, David? Where'd you get all this stuff and all these livestock? Oh yeah, I went over to the other neighborhood over there, where I came from, the neighborhood that I.
The whole time, so it was Achish's people.
Yes.
And David first asks if he can stay in Achish's spot.
Right.
This place. Wow. Oh man.
So this is where I see, David's got some real conflict building inside of him. I can see how he was justifying, oh yeah, I'm killing the enemies subversively. I'm killing the enemies of Israel. Did God ask him to do that?
Yeah.
Did God tell David, you need to go to Gath and you need to run away from here? Did he say that? So, although, one could argue, he's helping the cause of Israel, at the same time, David's kind of acting on his own. He's kind of doing his own thing. He's got his own agenda. And I think this is where we begin to see.
He's taking out all the Philistines, though, right?
He's taking out the Philistines. So that can't be a bad thing.
Those are
people's enemy, right?
Those are the Israel's enemy.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting. We got 3 more chapters in 1 Samuel, and we'll see how that book ends up.
So does the Kish figure it out and then go after David, and then David probably wipes him out too?
We'll have to see in the next chapter. Until next time.
An enemy of your enemy is your best friend.
And so we'll finish 1 Samuel, and then we'll do our Christmas study, like we normally do. And then the beginning of the year, huh?
We're gonna finish 1 Samuel at Christmas time.
No, we're going to finish 1 Samuel, and then we'll begin the Christmas study. It's like 4 or 5 meetings.
There's no meeting next week.
No meeting next week. The calendar on there has when the dates are, so just look on the calendar on the group me. And then we'll go through the Christmas stuff, and then the beginning of the year we'll go 2 Samuel. We're going to go 2 Samuel until we get done. That's probably going to get us to basically the end of the school year. Over the summertime, we'll have we're going to have something else. I'm not sure exactly what we're going to do yet, but going into next fall, we're going to be going into Revelation.
Oh wow!
So.
You ready for that, Rick?
So we're skipping. He's probably already taught before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We haven't done. We did John when we first started back in the day. We did John, and then we went to Genesis. We did Genesis, Exodus, and we did Easter, and then we did the Apostles, and then we did Christmas, and then we did Exodus and 1 Samuel, and we'll do Christmas again, second Samuel, something over the next summer. I'm not sure. If you have an idea, let's talk about it. And then we'll do Revelation. Start Revelation, and that's going to be basically all fall, all spring.
It's gonna line up perfectly.
It's gonna like so. Anyway, glad you're here. The main thing to take away from this is we think we're doing something good. Are we doing it because God asked us to do it, or are we doing it because we want to do it?
Yeah, that's true.
And if we're doing it, are we doing it to glorify Him, or are we doing it to glorify ourselves?
Are we following God's heart or our own?
God's heart or our own heart? My heart takes me down some dark roads. I'd rather be one who follows after God's own heart,
Amen.
right? So thank you for coming.